Excited for. All right, Luke, what is going on, my man?
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Thank
I'm good. How about you?
Great. Great.
Uh,
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude. I am so excited to dig into some of this stuff. Especially there hasn't been a whole lot with these interviews or conversations that I've been able to have as far as kind of on the hip hop or kind of rap beats side to
Right.
music, and so. I'm really excited to dig into some of this stuff, and I mean, yourself being a beat maker and kind of working on those things behind the scenes. I'm excited to hear some of that. So, I first of all want to say I appreciate you coming on today and taking the
Uh,
time and coming to hang out, my man.
yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right, let me. So here on Grown Out Live, basically, we have we're gonna go over some things, just kind of digging into earlier in life as far as interest in music, some things that you have more recent, and then I have one finale question that I have written just for this episode. We'll be
Oh,
kind of
nice.
digging into that. So we'll start off here from at an earlier age. All right, digging into as far as earlier memories of music in general, just different things, from maybe a band, song, or album that resonated with you, possibly starting your interest in music. Let's start there. Where what comes to mind?
Um, New Edition. Believe it or
Okay.
not, it was New Edition. I was in the second or third grade. I used to go home after school every day and watch What's Happening. And after that, there was some music video show set apart because you had to have cable to have MTV.
Uh,
So I didn't have MTV, and then this music program that came on in New Edition video came on, and I was in love with it.
okay.
So
All right. Nice. Now,
this is going to
was
go a lot of different music genres. Trust me, this interview. So it
I love
started
it.
with that.
Yeah, hell yeah,
So
I love
yeah.
that. That's it. And now, does that kind of bring it back to a time too, where mentioning, and it comes to mind because I mean, there was time where like not having MTV and whatnot, you would have friends that would make like VHS tapes of different music videos. Was that something of a thing where you had friends where it was like, oh man, I heard somebody said that you have this on tape. Can I borrow that? Or do like a tape trading at all?
Not at that time. I didn't really have too many musical friends. It was we did
Okay,
that, but that was like later on into like the hip hop, you know, era of my life that we were trading tapes and whatnot. So,
sure, okay.
but at that early age, no, it was just whatever I saw on TV was it.
Okay,
So,
got you. What was the point as far as, kind of taking like a deep dive into hip hop or even electronic house, as far as artists even. What were, where did that get really introduced into you other than just kind of maybe even mainstream artists?
hip hip hop came. I mean, it was always there in the late '80s. It was always. I remember when NWA first came out and all that. But in high school, it was friends, and it was all about turntables, and I was introduced to a beat machine. And then at that time, like Wu Tang was getting really heavy, and I really loved the dark, that New York kind of sound that really got me into hip hop a lot. So from there, it just took
Okay.
off. But, there was a gap. It took a while to get back into hip hop.
Oh,
Absolutely.
okay. Okay, got you. With that too, was that something that you would say even early on that the beat or the music, the orchestration behind everything was kind of an earlier draw to artists that you would get into?
Yeah, it was always the beat. It was always, to me,
Hmm.
there would be so many songs people would be like rapping the lyrics, and I'd be like, what's that? And then like I always recognized everything through the beat. And I just love the hypnotic, like heavy kick and snare behind a lot of hip hop. So that's what always just drew me to it right away.
Sick. Yeah, totally.
So
I mean, I think I guess myself playing drums, that's always been something too. Where it's like flow is always something cool. I like kind of the approach, or attack, as far as whoever the MC is or rapper that's going over it. But a beat has always been the thing where it's like, okay, I might
yeah,
not necessarily be too into like the lyrics or anything, but the music of something certainly always draws me back as well. So yeah, I like
yeah,
that. That's sick. What
right there.
As far as getting into buying your first CD or tape or vinyl, bring us back to that. And what was the first thing that you bought with your own allowance or maybe something birthday money?
Um, well, I believe it was Guns N' Roses. That Clint Eastwood Deadpool movie came out where Guns N' Roses was in it, and they had Welcome to the
Okay.
Jungle. So it was
Yeah.
like I remember it was Guns N' Roses, The Cult. As far as with my own money, my dad actually, when I was little, took me to buy the New Edition album. So that
Oh,
was my
sick.
first
Okay.
actual album. But with my own money, it was just, doing odd and end little jobs for, like allowance money and shit like that, where it was
Yeah.
like Guns N' Roses. And I burnt that thing out in my Walkman. That tape is so slow now. Um,
Nice. I mean, that was almost like a measure of success in a sense of when you have a tape or you have a CD that the fucking thing just won't play anymore because you've played it out so much. It's like,
oh
man,
yeah,
apparently I like that one. Shit.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
What about so as far as something with the physical aspect of going to a record shop or going to a music store and having cover art, bring us back to a time, a memory that you have of something just drawing you based off the cover art, an artist, a band that you didn't even know. What comes to mind with that? Something from cover art drawing you.
Um, Grateful Dead. I remember
Oh yeah.
digging for records, and then I remember always like, oh shit. To me, Grateful Dead was supposed to be like this crazy LSD band that that was supposed to be super psychedelic. So I remember years later seeing a Grateful Dead album and being like, oh, this album cover, this is that band, and went home and was just very disappointed. It wasn't. It was not. I'm glad I didn't drop acid to that album because it was. I thought it would be just like I thought it was going to be crazier than like anything Pink Floyd would have done or anything like that, and it was just like driving my train, and I was like, I'm out, I'm out.
Oh god,
So
I mean, it's funny mentioning that because hearing that band name, I feel like maybe one of the earlier times I had heard of the band was from a T-shirt, and I'm like, whoa, that's a pretty tough name. Like, kind of thinking maybe thrash or I don't know, just maybe something a little bit heavier, And I can agree. The first time listening to it, it's like, oh boy, this is nothing like what I was anticipating. Like,
yeah,
I don't necessarily hate the band, but I don't
hmm
know. I mean, pretty cool name and kind of drawing from what you end up getting out of it for sure.
yeah, definitely,
So
definitely.
did you end up buying that album then? Was that something that you picked up, or was that like something that you got to listen to a
Yeah,
couple of tracks before?
no, I bought it.
Okay,
I used
okay,
to go. I was always at the swap meets just buying every weekend morning. So I just came across it, and I'm like, oh, I'm definitely getting this. And then
yeah,
I couldn't even sample anything on that album, so it was
okay.
shelved.
Okay, nice. So, as far as the transition from interests in music and playing music, what were kind of dig into like a first instrument? Did you have something before kind of getting into the electronics behind everything, as far as guitars or drums, anything like that?
Yeah,
First getting into this stuff.
the bass. I'm like my main instrument, believe it or not, is the bass.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah,
my dad bought me a bass. I think it was like the summer of like fifth grade, going into sixth grade. So from there, this a new neighbor moved in. He saw me with the bass, going to bass lessons, and he hit up my dad. He's like, "Hey, I'm a bass player. Don't waste your money on lessons. I'll teach this guy." And he just kind of just taught me, and then introduced me to Iron Maiden, and then it was over from there. I was just
Oh wow,
huge
shit.
learning everything Steve Harris did.
Okay.
So
So what bass was this? Tell us about that first one that you learned all this stuff on.
it was an old um, Aerial Pro, I believe it was, or I don't even think that. It
Okay.
was like a generic. It was just something he found, and I was just determined to learn it. Well, everybody in the neighborhood, we were going to start like this heavy metal band, and I was like the last to pick the instrument, so it's of course it's like, oh, you're going to be the bass player, and I'm like, okay, but I fell in love with it. I
Sure.
really fell in love with it, so I just stuck with it.
Okay, damn. And I mean
So,
that's cool too. Having having that as far as I guess progressing into more recent and having that where it's like not only the rhythm section of necessarily the drums or what's going on there, but then also the underlying of the bass too. Or ever playing in like a live band. Like playing drums. Like the bassist is always who I'm watching. Like that's always who I'm paying
mhm.
attention to and kind of listening to for the rhythm of
Yeah,
shit. And so
yeah.
it's funny because at first you think about, like, oh, I don't want to play bass, and then you kind of, get in the rhythm of playing shows and playing live and shit, and it's like the rhythm section, that's a big part of the band for sure.
Oh yeah, it's the backbone. So
Yeah.
definitely, I watched
With
the bass player too.
yeah.
So
Okay. Now with you, did you play like did you end up starting bands then as far as playing bass and progressing from there?
never. Um, no, from there, I never played in a band at all when I was younger. But then I started getting into jazz, and then I discovered like classical guitar. So I bought an acoustic guitar and just kind of just started um, teaching myself how to play classical guitar. And then from there, I started playing more guitar and kind of put the bass away and just got into like
Mm.
prog rock and like King Crimson and Yes and all of that stuff. So it just all kind of meshed together. I was a huge, still am, Simon and Garfunkel, like the
Oh
songwriting and the
yeah, for
finger
sure.
picking. So I was like very into finger picking guitar.
Oh
So
wow, okay. Okay.
mhm.
Oh, do you, as far as when you were going into playing guitar, do you remember a couple of songs or in particular like artists that were kind of your first draw to maybe I'll try and pick up the guitar and see how this goes.
I went like super deep. It was like I wasn't. It was like Joe Pass and
Oh, okay.
all of that stuff. So like they had tablature books, so it made it easier to read, music. So from there, I just went in, and it was like I said, they had the Simon and Garfunkel greatest hits on tab. So I was just buying all these tablature books and just teaching myself how to play all of that. But I would say definitely Simon and Garfunkel and Joe Pass.
Okay. Damn. Now, so how do you get introduced to it? And maybe I'm calling this the completely wrong thing. Is it an MPC? I don't want to sound like
Uh-huh.
a complete fucking virgin saying this wrong. Okay.
No, no,
Okay. No,
you're
okay.
right.
So how do you get introduced to this and how does that get introduced into playing with different artists and learning how to play in a live setting?
It was it traditionally is not used for live,
Yeah.
but I went through a series of different samplers and sequencers before I ended up with that, and it's just I love the feel to it. I used to play on like the keyboard samplers and stuff like that, but it got introduced like a buddy left a drum machine at my house one day, and he left it for like a few weeks. So I started get playing beats, um, and then I started like a friend of mine every Thursday night he would host these like freestyle rap battles with all the friends. And then we were always just DJing and letting everybody do their thing. And then it was just one day it was just like, hey, let's make our own beats. Like let's do this stuff, you know. And so I bought a sampler, he bought a sampler, and that was pretty much how it all started.
Oh shit. Okay. So now they were doing like an open mic, like kind of a freestyle thing, and then you guys were also doing like a live beat session over that too.
in the in the beginning it was just vinyl. It was just DJing,
Oh, okay.
and
Yep.
then as we started making our beats, we kind of transitioned out of the other people's music and just started doing them with our own beats.
Shit.
So
That is so sick. So how does that work as far as do you have to show up to a gig or to a show as far as having it like preloaded in a sense, and you have to go like in transition through different presets, or how does that work? Because I'm not all that familiar, especially with changing shit and having different songs with different sounds. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, it it does become a headache sometimes because I'm always having to like change stuff around. But a lot of it is just I know this is old, but these old little discs, these
Oh
these
shit.
these
Okay.
go pop right in, so I save them the sound. So they are like kind of preset, and then yeah, I mean we just kind of it each project is a little different. With like Planet B playing with the live drums, we have to have everything just on time. You know, with Sonido, I'm playing with the live DJ, so I can ease back a little bit, and there's room for me to fuck up here and there. You know,
Yeah.
with Planet B, if one thing goes wrong, it's gonna fuck everything up. So
No pressure. Shit.
yeah, definitely.
Damn. Okay. Now, so what about your first times recording? I mean, I know you mentioned as far as like with bass and guitar or whatnot, but with getting into the beat aspect, what were some of the first times either recording with friends or even going into a studio? Tell us about some of those memories.
That was it. Before, I've never really been into a studio because
Okay.
back when we were buying the drum machines, that was it. We had a little 4-track tape cassette recorder, and then that's what we were recording everything on. And then from there, we were like, well, let's just start making our own songs. And then, we all gathered up money and just bought, monitors. We bought a digital recorder, and from there, so I never really had experience in a studio. We just went and made our own.
Nice. Okay.
So
And,
mhm.
and I mean, you can appreciate that too, in the sense of the whole do it yourself. There's been so many times where you go in and you have the whole experience of setting all the shit up and then resetting it up and having to tune and da 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 da, and then all of a sudden you get the final product and it's like the shit that we did in your garage sounds better than this.
Yeah,
Like, God damn it, let's just go back to doing that shit and having fun instead of having to stress with all this shit.
yeah, definitely. And the money, like having to go pay, it's so
Yeah,
nice to have
that
your own studio.
totally, totally. Yeah, not to mention
Um,
that for sure. What about playing
yeah.
shows? So, as far as your first show, whether what instrument it was, and tell us about that.
Um, I mean, early on, I was a like in junior high, I would play in the high school jazz band.
Oh,
So I
okay.
used to leave junior high an hour early, and the music teacher would drive me to the high school. And, that's like my earliest shows would be with that. But other than that, I didn't really play. I, we would freestyle, jam out. I'd be on bass, and, we would do like live, improvised shows. But it wasn't until like the hip hop where we started as a group, like us, like me with like my crew's the first power crew.
Mhm.
Then we would start, we would have the MCs, and, we would just play beats and do it live like that.
Okay, nice, nice. Have you done any traveling as far as like any like small tours or like traveling out of state at all, playing shows?
Yeah, out of state, usually when I would do like those break albums with D Styles and whatnot,
Yeah.
we
Okay.
would always go. We were in Japan a lot, doing
Oh
that, a
wow.
few different areas in Asia, and then a few states. It would just be like, hey, you want to go, it would be like a spur of the moment kind of thing. Like, hey, you want to go over here? You want to go to France? It'd be like, yeah, let's go. We're gonna go play here for 3 days, or it would be like just Texas or here. So I did a lot of that as far as like my own projects and stuff like that. Not too many tours early on.
Okay. Okay. With doing that, and like traveling so far, is that just something out of there being a community, like in, someone reaching out to you or someone reaching out to whatever, like group that you've been involved with and saying like, man, it'd be cool if you guys came over here. And it was just kind of a situation where it's like, well, fuck it.
Th-
Let's make it happen.
That's that's why it was always Japan, because the scratch scene, the DJ scratch scene, and the beat scene was huge. Like that's where,
Oh, wow.
you
Okay.
know, and the distributors, when we were making our own records, were always in Japan. So they were the ones saying, "Hey, come down, and play," because it was there. You do something like that in San Diego, and like maybe 4 or 5 people will show up.
Damn.
So
And
it's a
and a complete different turnout over there.
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
Damn, that's
definitely.
sick. Wow. Okay.
Hmm.
So as far as within beats and dabbling a little bit myself, like I really appreciated kind of listening to some of the interviews that I listened to or watched, some of the live stuff that you've been doing. As far as like the longing path of finding some new layers to include. I know that you mentioned like chain link fence and washer and dryer doors. And customizing your own machines. Tell us about discovering some of these sounds and some that work great and maybe something that like you were stoked on and it just ended up sounding like shit.
The majority of them sound like shit, but I used to just have a portable recorder, so and you could hook up a mic to it, and my son was little at the time, so I first kind of got into it by taking him to the park. And then, a lot of the parks transitioned to these like plastic, slides and stuff. So, we'd play and I would hit them and I'd be like, oh, this is cool. So then I was recording them, but, and then it just, back then I was a little more like adventurous in finding sounds. But one time I was really stoned in my buddy's backyard where we actually had a recording set up, and I was just playing with the clothesline outside, and it just
Oh,
had
okay.
this bong 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 bong, and I just recorded that, and I just fell in love with it, And as far as
Damn.
like, I probably tried to record any and every little thing, so a lot of it didn't work out.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but the
No,
washer and dryer doors is always great. I still use those in my beats.
oh shit. Okay.
Hmm.
And that's just something that you have like a single layer that you have the recording and you drop it in and then, just drag it, cut and paste.
Yeah, I just layer it with other kicks. So a lot of times it'll be up front, sometimes it's in the back, but that's where I get a lot of that heavy kick is through layering it with just sounds like that.
Damn, that rules. Well, as far as so kind of going back to like the playing live, as far as your pre-show ritual, do you have anything that kind of gets you ready as far as for prepping, going out? As far as I know that you mentioned you'd had like some like different like floppy disks and you have to have those on hand. But as far as things that kind of that you do to kind of get you ready for going out and playing, anything
A
to
shot of
center yourself.
vodka, just a shot of vodka, and then I'm always really nervous when it comes. I could never like ease into it. Like I kind of am now, especially with like I'm doing more shows with Sonido. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of like easing into it, and it helps to have like the DJ with me, but I'm never like at complete ease. So I guess I'm trying to psych myself out to be, and I guess that would have
Oh,
to just be a ritual. But yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Like if I just have a shot of vodka right before, and I can kind of calm my nerves.
Yeah. Okay.
So
What do you have anything as far as like a basic setup that you bring for? I mean, different groups, I'm sure, contain certain things that you have to have for each. But are there particular tools or things that you always have to have on hand as far as when you're going to play live?
it's more of the sounds, but like with Planet B, I use two MPCs because there's so many sounds that you can't load them. I would have to I would have to reload the sound in the middle of a set, reload a disc, and it's like you can't do that because you have to stop the show. So with Planet B, it's two NPCs, and then with like Sony though, it's one NPC, and then I have another like NPC, but it's a pad controller, and it because I'm doing a lot of accordion, so that I just hook up an accordion sounds into that one. So that's dedicated just for accordion, and then all the rhythm is on the other NPC.
Oh, okay.
So it's
And I
kind
mean,
of different.
I've watched, like some of the performances too, and I'm just like, God damn, like it's one of those things where it looks like it might be something, like a keyboard or just from muscle memory, but still, even then, it's like how is he not fucking up more doing this? Because
Oh,
I mean, it's just like I don't know. I mean, it's sick. I would love to see, hopefully, like things kind of pick up and eat with Planet B or Sonido either. I'd love to see it live because it's insane from some of the fucking videos that I've seen, and just like
uh,
the close-ups on you playing and shit, and then you have two setups with Planet B. It's like, god damn, man, that's fucking nuts.
yeah, it's a lot of practice too.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Is that something too where you're at home and you have it just like blaring and the kids dancing around too, or is that kind of something that you have like a home setup as far as like headphones and just kind of fucking around with it?
no, it's in the studio. Like I
Okay.
have my own studio, so I'm just here pretty much all the time. So I it kind of I just dedicate it. I dedicate time to like kind of like perfecting that, you know.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Yeah. I mean it's smooth too, so it shows shit because I
oh,
can I
thank
can
you.
certainly imagine some people trying to jump up and be like, oh, I can do that and looking like a complete ass.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
far as where like one thing that came to mind, and I guess it's just maybe personal preference, and there's might not be a great answer for it, but where did the approach come as far as for the working on like a beat maker as opposed to like scratching or turntables? Like, did you ever have any desire as far as your approach with that, or even playing the drums? Like, did you ever have something where you kind of ventured out into different aspects of beats of tracks?
I mean with the beats and scratching, that is like hand in hand. That's kind of where it all started from. Aside from like us working with the MCs, we were very into the DJ scene. So
Mm-hmm.
that was another thing is just like, oh, we're gonna make our own beats for scratching, you know. But as far as like for years, it just was just that. You know, it didn't venture off until later on, you know, into that like aspect of me like switching genres, doing the same techniques, you know,
Mm,
but it was
okay.
always DJ and beats were always hand in hand.
Okay. Yeah. And,
So,
I guess I didn't know, like, I didn't know if that was like a dumb question, I mean, because that's like asking a drummer,
nah,
like, oh, well, why didn't you get into playing guitar? Like, well, I don't know, they're two fucking things. Like, I just kind of fell into it, but I always
yeah,
think that that's interesting too when you see, someone who has like an MPC as opposed to doing like scratching or having like a turntable and it just being you know similar like you mentioned, but then also its own thing, very much so, and I'm sure its own version of a fucking headache in both aspects.
uh, definitely a headache, definitely.
Now, as far as I have an interest in combining sounds and genres. What are earlier memories of collaborating with artists outside of alike genres, and how was the idea personally introduced to you? May it have been local shows or albums, that you listened to where it was like a genre blending track. Tell us about some of those things.
I mean, going back to hip hop, there was a few tracks that I actually like, not on a collaboration idea, that I actually played a lot of like classical guitar over the beats and stuff like that. So
Oh,
that would
okay.
be kind of like you know, a blending of two genres. But it wasn't until Planet B, you know, that it got like serious and mixing, you know, everything Justin does is just so in your face with the beats, and I had to like bring my A game kind of and get a little heavier than what I was normally used to,
Sure.
you know.
With some of that stuff too, I kind of noticed, as far as with Planet B, it almost kind of transitions into feeling, score-esque, something from like a sci-fi movie. There's certain aspects where it's like, man, this is totally original. I've never heard it, but it feels familiar in a very good way of being a fan of, horror or sci-fi and some of the kind of dreamier UFO sounds with shit. And I mean, there's some definite, sick stuff going on there. Tell us
Yeah.
kind of transitioning into mentioning the band being born working on a score of a movie. What can you tell us about your typical approach to music versus being in the process of scoring?
Um, it's I mean the process of like with the film thing is you get the film first, so you're writing to that, you know. And I don't have a lot of experience in it, but it was more like, how do I capture this scene in doing, like when we were doing the incompressive film, there was certain, you know, aspects where the little girls, you know, like in the school giving the speech, and it was just like, hey, let's tone this down, but let's still like find the emotion, as opposed to when the cast a spell scene, you know, it was, you know, let's get to the theme, but let's try to add all this other stuff. And Gabe had like this glass jar full of rocks and like these chains and just shit like that. So it's more about like capturing the scene for somebody else, you know,
Sure.
as opposed to like Planet B, where we're like, oh, we can do what we want, and having like that sci-fi sound, you know, it's a little more freedom, you know.
Sure. Okay. Adding a layer as opposed to completely overtaking something and making it solely about that thing.
Right.
Okay.
You know,
Okay. Nice.
so.
What did you have anything as far as you know, inspiration going into something like that where, you know, you kind of I don't want to say like it's like a taking from or anything, but as far as movies wise, and it's like, man, I really like how they did something here, and if we really built up the tension or what, was there anything film wise that you remember kind of being an inspiration for some of the approaches for the tracks?
No, no,
No. Okay.
no, but I am very influenced on a lot of film scores. You know, like the film score to me thing is, there's two different kind of, I see it in two different ways. Like there's the sci-fi and there's the horror, you know, and all of that, you know, a lot of those early, you know, what Goblin did and all of that, like that's a lot of influence into
Yeah.
like Planet B and stuff like that. That's all like, I love all of that stuff, you know. And then there's like I I just finished working on the music of a film a while ago that's waiting to be out, but it's a skateboard documentary. And even then, it was still starting to sound more like, you know, the director gave me the freedom to do whatever the fuck I wanted. So I had to kind of like try to capture it, you know, scenes. But even then, it's not really a true score, as opposed to something that I would really like to do. It was still NPC based, and I had a lot of like live drummers come on and play, you know, but it wasn't like a score like you have other, like John Williams does, or like my
Mhm.
one of my favorite scores is like Rocky. You know, Bill Conti, what he does for the Rockies is so like beautiful, you
Sure.
know. Or like back to John Williams with like Schindler's List. Like you can't beat like what he did with the violins
Yeah.
right there. So
Yeah.
it's like two different things. So I have pieces of music that I've written like that, but I've yet to score a film like that, and I really would love to, you know.
Man, okay. So with the this documentary that you're mentioning, or is it a documentary or a skate video?
Yeah, it's a documentary on the history of skateboard graphics.
Holy
So,
shit, that sounds fucking awesome. Have they released anything like information on that at all? Like a
no,
title or
we're just,
anything?
oh, it's called Skate Face. So it should be out. I know, like right when we were testing it, right when COVID hit and everything got shut down, it was getting picked up at a few film festivals. But then that kind of just got all shut down. So during that, they were like, let's rework some of this stuff. So I just recently redid the intro. And right now I'm fucking struggling so hard to write to the trailer, because the trailer's like edited so closely, and I'm just having a tough time with that right now. But it'll be out.
Damn.
Definitely will be out, you know.
Man,
So,
that sounds fucking awesome. I love that. That sounds cool. Now,
oh, it's gonna
I
be
was gonna
great.
mention, I was gonna ask too, is just as far as you had mentioned, you have different drummers that come on too, live drummers. Was this other instruments or other musicians as well, or did you have just the drummers coming in?
Kevin, Kevin from Planet B. Um, he was like the main one. He did it because I knew it needed live. It needed a live feel for it, you know. And then my other studio partner, Matt Coleman, he played, he's really influenced like with that Black Sabbath. So there's a time period where it like touches the 70s, and I thought, oh, it needs like this. Or when they're talking about like Dogtown, it's like, oh, don't put hip hop, it needs
Right.
to have like that crushing rock, kind of that 70s, that, sound.
Damn,
So,
sick.
I knew I needed drummers to complete the movie, you
Damn,
know.
that sounds awesome, man. I'll have to look in to see if they have like a page on IMDb or reach out to someone as far as around the release of that because I'd love to have someone on that's working on that. That sounds sick. That's
Oh,
uh,
I'll put you in touch with them, definitely. I'm sure they
sweet,
would love to do
awesome.
something. So,
Yeah, very
yeah.
cool. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was like it was one of the, I think I've mentioned in other interviews too. Like skateboarding was always something that I wanted to be into, and I always loved the graphic art. That was always a huge thing to me. Was like just even out of companies, kind of looking and seeing something from zero or seeing something from enjoy. It's like just that
Uh-huh.
whole aspect of pulling in, and then always being absolutely horrible at fucking skating. So
Uh,
it never really went anywhere, but goddamn, I tried.
yeah. Same here. Same here.
Yeah.
So,
Then you have some of those friends that they just hop on one day and they're doing fucking kick flips and all sorts of backflip shove it's and it's like god damn it, man, what is this shit?
yeah.
Yeah. Lastly here, I wanted to dig into some beat breakdowns and just kind of go over a track, introduce a track, and mention just memories as far as working on it or some of the things that of course, the things that you're wanting to tell. If there's certain aspects that you don't want to put out there or
Hmm.
anything like that, that's cool. But just some memories of like working on the songs and maybe some behind the scenes of what went into them. First of all, I wanted to ask about Planet B's disease control.
Um, that one, that whole song is revolved around, to me, around that snare kind of bass, the bong, bong. And I believe I ran the snare and a bass through this thing right here. It just happened to be right there. This was not planned. But the organizer from Earthquaker, and
Oh,
you run
okay.
it sounds and it gives it that. I know I ran it through something else too, but that was the main thing. And then from there, it was just going and finding those sounds and then letting Justin and Sonny kind of filled it out and made it what it is, you know.
Dang. Okay. What's over the snares of it? So like you have the really big bass and then the snare comes in and it's almost like this weird kind of wavy sound, like watery sounded. What is that?
That's probably the organizer. I
Oh,
ran it.
okay.
I ran the snare with the bass through the organizer, so it gives it that like that drawn out kind of
Oh, sick.
sound.
The first time I heard that, I'm like, what the hell is that? Shit, that sounds sick
Yeah, me.
and like almost evil. Shit, it's like a weird draw to it.
Yeah, I was shocked at how it came out. So it was like, oh, we got to use this, and then that's kind of how it came about, really.
Okay. Now, do you have certain things that that come to mind as far as like that that instance being kind of like a happy accident where you just kind of were trying something and you toss something together, plug in a couple of things and
Everything
it's like, whoa, this is fun.
with with uh with Planet B, everything is like that. It has to be. You have to go in there experimenting. I never go in like, oh, I'm gonna do this, this today. With Planet B, everything is pretty much an experiment, and then trying to find that, like, I might hear something, and be like, oh, I'm gonna sample that, but I gotta like fucking twist it, my own way and make it something, and I don't know how it's gonna come out, you know, as opposed
Okay,
to like
totally.
Sonido, I know, hey, we're gonna go and make a cumbia, it's gonna need an accordion, and it's gonna need like this bass line and the shakers. I experiment with some of the sounds, but you know what it's gonna be. In Planet B, I don't know at all.
Okay. Now, do you have on hand, or maybe not on hand, but do you have like a bigger collection of pedals that you've, is that something that over the years have picked up on?
I have a little collection now, thanks to Earthquaker. Like they've, you know, have gifted me. a few pedals. I actually never used
Oh, sick. Okay.
pedals at all until Planet B, until Justin kind of introduced them to me. And I was always, I mean, I was always almost kind of against them. I'm like, no, you know what? I'm gonna make my own sounds without having to alter it with through these pedals. But then once he left his pedal board here at the studio, and I remember just kind of playing with it, and then it was like, okay. So, but
I
I
get
still keep it
it.
minimal. I don't go heavy. I don't like rely on the pedal, but I love for it to alter the sound, definitely.
Sick. Okay.
So
Nice. What about Crust Fund? I wanted to dig into that bad boy.
that's um that's just a sample that I had laying or like I've had that sample even before it was, and I remember it was on a whole different beat, I believe. And then if I remember correctly, Justin heard that and was like, that, like, let's do that. And oddly enough, he actually recorded Disease Control over the Crust Fund beat. Not the full song, but he had the Disease Control over the Crust Fund beat, and then
Oh
it
shit,
kind
really?
of, uh-huh, yep.
What? So
So
was it something that or you guys were just feeling that it wasn't like the right fit, or that you heard this next beat and you're like, no, I need to put this over this?
you know what? I think it kind of just got slept on with our schedules. Like the Planet B album was just, it wasn't like, hey, we're going to be in the studio for this amount of time. It was always just like working on this song and then regrouping here and there. And I think it kind of just got slept on and forgot. And I have so many tracks, I think it might have even been muted. But I know he still had Disease Control. I think it just kind of got overlooked. And then when the Disease Control beat came about, I think he went back to that. So,
Oh, okay. Damn, that's sick. Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. I mean, not ever hearing that, so I didn't know that was a thing, but that's cool. That's why I asked some of this shit, because it's fun, finding
Yeah.
out some of these behind the scenes with stuff. That's sick.
Oh yeah.
Next up, the Somos Sanaderos track. What can you tell us about that bad boy?
That that one was a struggle. That accordion line and Carlos the singer, that chorus, that song was actually made before even it was supposed to be on the first album, but it never came through. We just had a chorus and we had that accordion. So when we were doing the second album, I just kind of ran across it and I'm like, oh, let's bring this song back up. And Unite and I kind of struggled a lot on what beat to kind of do with it. So that song went through about like four different takes, like complete makeover changes until it settled with that. And then right when it settled with it, we gave it to Carlos, and I'm like, now it needs verses now. Like it was just a chorus and an accordion. So that one evolved a lot, like over 10 years.
Damn.
So,
Wow.
mhm.
Talk about a track that you listen to it once, you're gonna be fucking walking around the streets, you're gonna be making lunch, like that shit sticks in your head. Like ever since I've heard that song,
uh,
like it just constantly is there. So
ah,
I mean, it's
thank
funny.
you.
And then like you go on Apple Music, and you look, and I don't know what the hell it even means, but you have like the starred tracks, and like that it wasn't
Mhm.
even one of them. And I'm like, how the fuck is this not like the song that they're known for? Like that track, I mean, I absolutely love it. Like just brings a smile to your face. Like
Thank you.
that song's cool, man. All right, so next up, I
Thanks.
wanted to dig into Satanic Planet,
Uh,
Gray Faction. Excuse me.
um, that one was actually really like fun to do with going back to like Planet B and Nothing being coming in the studio here and there and whatnot. Um, Lucian came down to San Diego and we had a rough idea of what we were going to do. So, but he was here for a few weeks and we wrote that album in that time and just kind of experimented with the sounds with that one. And Great Faction, believe it or not, was made like the beat. I think I remember Justin, Lucian, and were just on the couch, just kind of just writing ideas, and then the beat just kind of just came about, and I mean maybe in like 10, 15 minutes.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay. Now,
and I was
so
shocked.
with that whole
I was just gonna say I was
okay.
shocked. I didn't expect that to come out so like heavy like that. So I was happy with it.
Yeah, for sure, heavy and dark for sure. I mean the album in
Mm.
general, but what with that project, how did that come about? As far as was that something between you and Lucian talking, or was it Justin and Lucian talking?
It
How did that
was
come
it,
about?
it was Justin linked up with Lucian somehow. We have the Cult and Culture podcast, so we
Yeah,
ended up
yep.
flying out to Salem and getting Lucian on the podcast, and then from there, Lucian had like this kind of rough idea of like he was just kind of talking about music stuff, and then when we got back into San Diego, uh, Justin and I were talking, and we just kind of like, hey, what's up? Like, let's maybe take this opportunity and hit him up. And originally, I thought we were gonna just do like a soundscape, and Lucian was just gonna talk. It was gonna kind of be like the Anton LaVey kind of, where he was just gonna talk with the organ in the background. But we were gonna
Mm.
make it like Planet B and dark, but in the background. And then when he came out, it just transitioned to that. He was kind of like, so it just kind of just happened, you know,
Damn.
and so quickly too.
Okay.
So
And you said the whole thing was over a couple of weeks. You guys wrote and had it recorded and everything.
yeah, for the most part, yeah, for the most part, like the structure of it was done, and then everything was kind of just handed off and passed on to Dave Lombardo, and then him and I kind of went back and forth on layering it up. But yeah, it was a couple of weeks, and then I think we recorded one song. This happened right during COVID, like when we had finished the bulk of it. It was like maybe a week later, everything got shut down or two, you know. So it was basically all like kind of put together during like right before COVID, and then Dave and I kind of just went back and forth during COVID and kind of got it, you know, done.
Okay. Now, with Dave's involvement too, what was that as far as I know that he had there was mentions of like different sampling and different not drums in the aspect of like typical Dave Lombardo like drum kit, but what was that as far
Hmm.
as you guys like going back and forth, and how did that work with the relationship wise as far as the uh, uh,
It's,
even scoring of it, you know?
it was Justin. Really, he hit up Dave to do one track,
Mm,
and then it wasn't what I had. It took me a while to kind of settle in, because I was like expecting him to do the drums, and then he came back with this like strings, and a lot of the hauntingness of it is him, you know. But then, anyways, like he loved it, and he was like, "Hey, what's up? I'll do another one." So we gave him another track, and then he came back with it, and I kind of liked it. And from there, he just ended up doing the whole project with us. So we were lucky enough to get him on that.
shit. Okay. But so it had started initially with like a foundation of something that you had already had, as far as may it be, sound that's happening, or layers like a. I don't want to say beat, because I mean it a lot of it almost feels like it's like a score, like it's not
Hmm.
necessarily kind of something you're bobbing your head to, but I mean like it captures you, like you start it and you're like, all right, where is this gonna go?
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely. There was an outline, and then but it was just like sometimes he stripped it back and like came up front, and then sometimes he would um, you know, it was awesome because he got to do his own thing, really. But ultimately there was like a first like kind of background to it that was handed off to him. He was pretty much like get all the lyrics, get all that stuff done, and then send it to me. So
Okay.
it was easy
Shit.
to work
Yeah,
with that way.
that's cool. For sure. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
What about so next up a different project and something that's been going on for a little bit. You got Scratcher's Delight. Before I even get into a track, because I was going to ask about Skipless 12. How did this come about? How did you start doing Scratcher's Delight?
That's with D Styles, and the same thing. Like once I started making beats, like we did the first power beat record, and
Mm-hmm.
met him at the NAMM show, and had given him a record, and he really liked our the beat style making. So him and I just linked up at his house a couple years later, and we're just kind of like, what are we gonna do, And then it was he kind of already had an idea for the album cover and all that, so we just kind of were in the studio, and we actually made both of those, the first two albums, in like 2 days, I think.
Okay. All right. Damn. Okay. So
uh,
in that was like where did the idea come from as far is that a thing like I guess I don't want to sound like naive, but is that a thing where I've heard goddamn what is there's a couple of different artists I know that they release like that's their thing is that they release out beats and different people take them and do what they will as far as with that. But this was kind of like one of the first times that I remember seeing actually like individual beats like just a cut 2 measure bar like it was that a thing like was that inspired is that a thing that I just never came on my radar.
yeah, it was big in the scratch scene. So
Oh, okay.
those records are designed for scratch. So you have like the beat, and then you'll have scratch sounds, or you'll have beats on one side and scratch sounds on the other. I think the first Scratches Delight has the beat is the four different beats or whatever. They intertwine at the same BPM through the whole thing, so you don't have to stop and flip over the record. You get a good like
Oh
13 minutes
shit. Okay.
of playing. So they're designed for scratch DJs.
Okay. That's sick. I love that. Now with so mentioning the track I was going to ask about was Skipless 12 and that snare, is that the same thing as far as from what we were mentioning earlier with Planet B? Is that the same? Is that the pedal, or was this something different that you did with layers, or how did
You know
that come out like that?
what? That one is, if there's a rattle. I don't know where I got that rattle, but that snare is in with the rattle. And there is a little bit of it, because I had to go back. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what song this is. And so
Yeah.
I went back and kind of just tried to figure it out. But there's definitely a rattle in there connected to the snare. So that's how it gets that
Oh, weird.
kind of thing. So, but if you notice, like on going back to like those albums, there's a thing called like a lock groove, and if you notice, when you play that album will never run out. That song will never run out because they lock the groove at the end of the vinyl, and so it continuously loops itself. So if you
Oh
time it
shit.
out exactly, if you time the BPM out, kick, snare, it'll lock itself and it'll play. So that beat is never ending on
Damn.
vinyl. Yeah.
Wow, that's sick.
So,
Holy shit.
yeah.
That's always been something too, like, anybody who's ever been involved in the scratch game or, anything with turntables, even some of the cats that you see that maybe the majority of their stuff is, something on a laptop, but they have to, kind of like do the transitions. Like, it's an art that I've never understood, but God, I fucking appreciate the hell out of it. It's, it's something that's so, so sick. And, kind of mentioning too, being involved in like the scratch scene for, within the what was the 90s and still even 2000s.
Yeah, towards the end of the 90s and 2000s, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, so sick. I mean, that rules. Yeah. Just as far as even little things like that, like little tricks of being able to, connect it and just keep the beat, going and it not being some awkward scratch, where everybody's in the middle of dancing. They're like, oh, well, that killed my buzz.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely. There's good. No, I was just gonna
no, go
say
ahead.
they're still like coming up with ideas. The scratch DJs are like so like always constantly figuring new stuff out and what to do. So they're beyond me. I can't even
Nice.
keep up.
Well, last up here, I wanted to dig into Bad Girls. So you guys do a cover track, and what I noticed and I thought was cool was the beat wasn't an exact like replica of what the original was, and it was something where it was still familiar, but something of its own, even with obviously Justin singing over it and whatnot. What can you tell us about working into starting up up this track and keeping it familiar, but also bringing in your own freshness with it?
Um, that kind of just, I always had that acapella like lingering around. And then
Mm-hmm.
like that one was another thing that just landed. It just hit right away. So it wasn't like that beat wasn't intentional for that remix. It just I believe like
Oh, okay.
I Justin and I used to do these like Planet B nights where we would DJ, and before I would be like, oh shit, I gotta play something like new, and I think that's where that kind of came about. I just layered that acapella just so I can give like the audience something new, like, oh, this is a new thing, and then it hit. Everything we do like that, it's like Justin will be like, hey, let's do that. So he was like, no, let's go in and like make this a true remix and get in there and do it. So it just kind of just happened.
Sweet. Yeah, that song rules too. I mean, I've always liked the
Oh, thank you.
original, and then I guess digging a little bit further outside of your guys' albums and whatnot, and seeing that you guys covered that, I was like, holy shit! Listen, I mean, it's sick. So, and that's
Uh,
that's funny too. How certain things like that happen where you have a beat already on hand that wasn't even something prepared for it, and it just so happens that you can slap some vocals over it and make something you know like I say, kind of still familiar but fresh in a sense,
yeah,
of it being its own original thing. So I love that. That's sweet.
yeah. I have a few
Look, man.
others like I was gonna say
Okay.
I have a few other like Britney Spears actually like kind of Planet B ish remixes too. I just haven't done anything with them, so you might hear them soon.
Yeah, I heard you guys mention it on one of the interviews there on one of your episodes of the podcast too, and I was gonna ask, and I was like, maybe I'll leave that just so I'm not trying to I'm not spoiling a fun thing, but I mean,
Oh
especially with
no.
all the BS that's going on right now, in the news and whatnot. I mean, it might be a
Hmm.
time to release one of those. Shit.
Yeah, that's a good idea actually.
All right, look, man, this has been absolutely awesome. This has been sick. This is wrapping up on our time here. I do have one finale question, but before that, this is your opportunity as far as kind of letting everyone know some things that you have coming up here, some things that are kind of in the works. Anything that you can talk about. Obviously, I don't want you putting out things that you're having to keep under wraps or whatnot. But this is your
Um,
opportunity.
no, I mean Justin and I are kind of about a little more than halfway done with the second Planet B album, so we're like kind of getting a wrap around finishing up that album. Um,
Sweet.
the the second Satanic Planet album is on its way. I mean, it's being formed. We have a few songs, so we're in talks of joining back together and getting more into that. Like I said,
Sheesh.
the skate face should be out. Myself, along with these guys out in Toronto, Alex and Graham, we're working on uh, another documentary film from John Nix, and I think we're pretty much almost done with all that, and then we've already started the third Sonido album. So everything I'm involved in is kind of just pushing all the projects.
Okay,
So,
nice. That's awesome. Shit. I mean, keeping busy and keeping some new stuff coming out.
oh yeah, definitely.
Hell yeah, awesome. I got to say, I dig all of these, but Planet B is the one that that really sticks with me, and I have that playing a lot. So I'm excited
Oh
to hear
no.
that something new coming from that. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Last up here, so this for this finale, listening through some of your stuff, I stumbled upon. I went back. It had been a while, but I stumbled upon your variations in the Key of Afterlife album. So the
Oh,
track, the chase scene. I wanted listening to that. Obviously, like even the title of it makes you think of, like an action movie or, something as far as, kind of score-esque, kind of some energy, somebody just got shot and now they're on the fucking run or something like that. If you
Hmm.
had the opportunity to work with someone that you look up to as far as in film, and you got to score, and I wrote this question not knowing that you're involved in, scoring some of these other things too, as well as the in compresa score. But if you had the opportunity with someone from film that you could work with as far as scoring a movie, who would that be? And would it be, like a horror movie? Would it be action? What kind of thing are we talking here?
Um, Shit, that's so difficult. Like I'm drawing a blank, as far as like a specific person. But right now, I would love to do a horror movie. Just be as far as like comfort, it would have to be something of that like nature, Dario Argento type feel for it.
Ooh, yeah.
But I'm also like would love to do something a little more serious too, to where I can bring in like a lot of like I'm learning like orchestration right now and like how to set the strings and horns and stuff like that. So I would love to kind of do a little more serious thing, but I mean, if I had to choose right now, I would say a horror movie, some kind of horror sci-fi-ish kind of thing that like, break away from like the NPC work.
Okay. Hell
But
yeah.
I'm so sorry. I cannot think of one person right now. I'm just totally just drawing a blank.
Totally.
So, but
Well,
it
I
is
mean,
an,
even you mentioned like Dario Argento, like the giallo type, Italian
mhm.
horror and having real heavy strings and kind of heavy on the emotion that comes behind it. I could totally see that. That'd be something sick. There was a movie recently. I don't know. Have you ever heard of a movie called *Malignant*? The guy who did
I've
like the
heard of it.
Conjuring movies, he did it.
Okay. Okay.
So
I've seen it. I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen
okay.
like the little ad for it. But yeah.
Okay, and
Hmm.
it's kind of more along the lines of like a throwback to like a giallo type feel where some of it's almost like a little surreal. It's kind of out there, but like scoring for something like that, I could see if they start doing like some bringing that back, as far as like some Italian, maybe '70s real raunchy
Oh
type shit.
yeah.
I could see something being sick like that. Some of your work doing that. So yeah, I
Yeah, I would love that.
with you doing the documentaries and being involved further with scoring. I mean, that'd be cool to see what comes of newer opportunities and different things, and the new skate documentary. I can't wait to see that. That'll be awesome too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Can't wait for you to see it. I love it. I really enjoy doing it, and I really like the film. Not because I'm involved in it, but that topic needs to be discussed, especially in the skateboard world. So I was very lucky to get that job.
Yeah,
So
totally. Absolutely. I love that. All right, well, look, man, yeah, want to wrap with it there. I anticipate with some of this new stuff coming out here to dig further into some of the new music and have you back on and dig into more of this stuff, my man. If that's cool,
absolutely,
you're
anytime.
you're a busy guy, dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me, and I'll come back anytime you want and to discuss whatever.
Awesome,
So
awesome, absolutely. Thank you very much, and I do appreciate it, man. These opportunities are cool. Just out of having interests in and being into some of this stuff, and Justin actually had mentioned your name, and I was like, holy fuck, I don't know how I haven't even like reached out to you. So yeah, I had to jump on that, and I'm glad that this worked out, my man. I really appreciate the time.
me too, me too. Thanks so
All right, man.
much.
You
Uh,
take care and stay safe. I'm gonna have this edited and on YouTube here within like the next like probably couple of weeks or so. So just so you know, I'll have a tag on here as well, and I'll have this all put up for anybody that was watching some of this and missed first halves or anything like that. So we'll have it
Absolutely.
posted up on YouTube. All right, man.
Perfect.
All right,
Thank you.
you
Have a
take
good
care.
day.
Yep,
Uh,
you too, man.
Bye.
Dun, 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 dun. He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi, lo-fi, a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-Fi Horror Guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.